talking about the solution for the ransom program. We have a large part of the program already written, and so now we need to figure out how to turn this text into text that's been randomly upper or lower cased. So the first thing was to work out this choose function. Let's see. The way that I wrote that here is that I'm going to return the uppercase version. Instead of I had hard-coded this to always return the character. Here I'm writing this to return the uppercase version of the character if when I make a random choice between 0 and 1, that comes out as something that's truthy, else return the lowercase character. And if I use that as the function and run PyTest on this program, so I put test.choose inside the ransom.py program. When I run PyTest on ransom.py, it's going to look for all the functions that start with test underscore. So using that, I can test this idea of this function. And the way I wrote the function was to, I decided that if random choice return something truthy, it's going to return the uppercase version, and if it's not, then it's going to return the lowercase. So I mentioned in the intro that how did I know it was going to make these choices? Well, I didn't. I actually wrote the function first, and then I ran it under starting with the seed of 1, and I said, what does it give me for A, B, and C, and D? And I encoded those as the answers, and then I put that into a function, and then what will happen is that if I ever change this program, for instance, if I were to accidentally come in here and change it from 1 to 0, 1 to 1 to 0, then I would expect that to make it fail because now it's doing exactly the opposite of what it used to do. So I didn't know a priori what that function was going to return. So I wrote the function, I ran it, I got the values, and then I encoded those as the test suite. And a lot of times, especially when you're doing random choices, that's what you're going to have to do. But by writing the test and then you continually run it, you know that if you ever change the function in a way that breaks the test, that you've somehow changed your program in a meaningful way. So this was supposed to be between 0 and 1. We go back and put that back. If I run it again, okay, I'm back to passing, and that's what I want to see. So that's how I wrote the choose function. And now I need to use it. So rather than printing args.text, I need to iterate over each character. So first I'm going to show you a for loop. So for char in this, I need to choose a random character. And this is a pattern we see over and over again, where we're going to initialize, let's say, new text. Is going to be some array. I'm gonna create a new list, an empty list, and I'm going to I'm going to append to that. I want to build up that new text, and I'm going to append some value to it. So, and then at the end, I'm going to print it back out. It's going to be a list, and so I want to, what is it? New text. Sorry. Hard for me to type and speak. So if I were to, for instance, just append the character, then I should get back exactly the same bit that I put in. So if I say foobar, I'll get back foobar. That's not what I want. What I want is to choose a new character for char. And now if I run that, I get back something random. And if I run it with a random seed of 1, and then run it again, I should always get back that. But when I take away the seed, I should basically get back something different each time. It's possible I could get back the exact same string, but it's not very probable. So that's one way to write this. And we've seen this pattern over and over again, and I hope it's starting to look familiar to you. Another way that we could write this would be to, instead of append, we can actually say plus equal is another way of writing append. It's just a change in syntax, and it returns the same thing. Sorry, I actually meant to run make test on that first version. So if I run the test suite, I see that it works. It works for this. If I go back, change it to the append version, and I run that, I see that it passes all of those. Another way to write this would be to make this into a string. And then if we use plus equal, it's the same thing. We're just building up this character by character, and now we don't have to join it. We're building up this new string character by character. And so now I don't have to do the join at the end. That should give me the exact same answer. So we see this pattern over and over again. And so how can we turn that into a list comprehension? Well, it's still going to be for char and text, but now new text is going to be equal to for char and text, and we want to choose char for char and text. So I'm going to comment this out, group that together so that we can always look back at it. And that's going to be a list, so I'm going to have to go back to joining that on the empty string to make that into a list. So that's another way to write this. If I didn't want to assign it to a variable, I could put this directly in. I generally only assign a variable, a named variable, if I'm going to use it more than once. And in here, since I'm not going to use it, to me this still looks pretty readable. That still passes. So that is a way to write with a list comprehension. One other way would be to write this with a map statement. So this choose, I wrote this in a particular way. I wanted to make sure that choose accepted just one positional argument. So, and that was by choice because I really wanted to be able to show you how to use this with a map. So if I wanted to create new text is equal to map, I'm mapping into my choose function. And what I like about this is I don't even have to say for char and text. It's just that it's going to take each character from args.text and iterate those into choose, and new text is going to be equal to the result of that. And I could print, I could join those together to get my new string. Let me indent that. And so if I print new text joined on that, I should get back the same. Yes, that gives me the same. But again, it's I don't use, I assign to new text and then I immediately use it. So that would probably, the way I would normally write that would be to not even assign it to a variable and just print that. Print joining on the empty string the result of mapping each character from args.text through the choose function. And if I run that, it also will pass the test suite. So this version up here, a for loop, completely a reasonable way to do this. And if that's the way you're comfortable solving this problem, then that's what you should do. I do think that a list comprehension is a much better choice. It's a very Pythonic solution, so it's a solution that many other Python users would immediately recognize and would probably approve of. I tend to personally prefer programming in a purely functional style, so I would probably choose this latter version. I feel like it's the fewest number of characters to type. I feel like it's the cleanest readable solution, but that readability is dependent upon my being very comfortable with how map works. And so, for instance, understanding that a map wants a function and then something that's iterable. Well, this is actually a string, but in an iterable context, Python is going to break that string down into each of the characters of the string. And so somebody new to Python might not understand that. It might not be quite as readable as for char in args.text. The selection of char as the variable name there really is a marker for the reader to say, hey, I'm processing each character in this text. And for somebody who might be new to Python, that might actually be a bit of essentially metadata documentation that might help them understand the way that function works. So that's how I would go about solving the ransom I hope that you found this a fun program. We never really got to run it with, like, say, some of the input text. So if we run it on Fox, we see that. If we run it on, let's see, what else do we have? I'm always a sucker for Emily Dickinson. So here's one of her poems. So I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll keep going with the next solution.